Welcome to the Sitting In podcast with Dalton and Max. This is a conversation with athletes about real life. First thing is first, we've got to introduce ourselves to y'all. So, Max, you want to go ahead and tell the people who you are?
Yeah, I'm Max Haggard. I grew up in Southern California. I've moved around a lot. I've been in Seattle. I've been in Tacoma. I've been in Orange County. And I have really explored the country and the world with my bike. Allowing me to kind of get out into the world. And that's always been the lens that I've explored my surroundings with. And I think that there are a lot of really cool interactions that I've had, people that I've met, and just spaces that I've been in that I never would have been able to do that without my bike. I'm an elite track racer. I race road. I run a bike shop. I'm a bike fitter. I'm a cycling coach. I'm kind of in the bike world in a bunch of different ways. And I think that the thing that has always amazed me about the bike is that so often the conversation with athletes is about their athletic achievements. And I think that what me and Dalton here want to change is how do we have conversations about real life with people who are athletes? So that is my goal with the podcast and with the YouTubes and the Spotifys and the podcast platforms.
Some people listen to Apple Music, I guess.
Some people listen to Apple Music, I guess.
I don't know who you are, but
yeah. I'm not sure if we're friends, but some people listen to Apple Music. So I think that my goal with this podcast is to really, I want to talk to people who have won a lot of bike races, but I don't want to talk to them about winning bike races. I want to talk to them about, their whole life leading up to the point that they started riding their bike. I think that that's a piece of narrative that gets overlooked a lot. I think it's a kind of, that is the missing piece, right? Like everyone knows that the way you win bike races is you get really strong and you race really smart. The question is, how do you end up in a place that allows you to do that? And a lot of times, like the people that I want to talk to are not successful bike racers. I think there's a lot of cool people who are living in this cycling space or endurance athlete space or tri space that don't win a lot. And they have a compelling narrative that is not at all surrounding them being a successful athlete. And I think that those people are often just as interesting, more interesting, because they've carved a little nook out in this space that is different than the successful winning athletes,
No, I totally agree with you. I think that's very true.
So,
yeah,
now that I've gone on my spiel, why don't you tell the listeners, the YouTubes, who you are?
I'm nobody. No, totally kidding. My name is Dalton Thornsberry. I grew up in a really tiny town up in the Central Valley. Interesting place to grow up. And, I am, engineer by education. I've been an endurance athlete for the majority of my life now. Sounds funny to say that because I think I started swimming really late in life for somebody who picks up those types of athletics. And I think that it's always been interesting to me because I never really considered myself an endurance athlete until I started riding and racing bikes. And I think that sort of things have just changed for me. And I started to realize there was maybe a little bit of a gap in the content creation side of the space. So, being a content creator myself, I've successfully been able to grow my YouTube channel to over 6,000 subs. I've gotten Instagram to around 16,000 followers at this point. And I wanted to take all that knowledge that I've gained over the last 3 years creating content and bring high quality production to the podcast space. And I think it's very much what you said. There's a gap when it comes to what we know about athletes and very successful athletes. And I think so often we speak to different endurance athletes that are successful and, athletes in general. And all that comes out is their accolades and their winningness and everything else. And I think that what is missing is exactly what you said, right? That grit, that determination, a lot of the qualities that make up a successful athlete. And I think that a lot of times too, that translates into things like entrepreneurship. You look at people like Shaq, like some 40 franchises. The man is worth millions and millions of dollars, right? What is it that takes an athlete like that and gives him the mental fortitude and capacity to be able to translate that into the business world, right? There are also a lot of challenges, I think, with being an athlete and dealing with a lot of different mental hurdles. So I think that it's also really important that we talk people through that and address those things. So that's sort of the gap that I found in the content space that I'm hoping to fill. And I think that we're pretty in alignment with that. So I'm really excited for what's to come.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times the discourse around athletes focuses on their athleticism and allows them to they exist in a bubble, right? Like, Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. And, it's like, yeah, but what is the narrative there?
First guest, Michael Jordan. No.
Yeah, come on in, Mike. But I think that there's been a trend in journalism and in this narrative. Like we saw it with F1, with that drive to survive. We saw it with Unchained, where people are realizing that incredible people, first and foremost, are people. And so being able to see what does the regular everyday life of people who are doing really incredible things is really grounding and I think means that they're less of this thing that gets viewed from the outside and is more, they're like, hey, I'm just a regular guy, and I think that what I want to do here and what I hope that this space is going to allow us to do is, there's all of these people who you see on the internet, on Instagram, who are you view through the window of the content that they produce. And the content that they produce is about cycling. It's about riding bikes. It's about doing Ironmans. And I think that's super interesting. I think that what I want to know is well, how did you get to a place where now you're paying your bills this way? Yeah. And also what put you into a position where just humanizing people.
For sure.
I think that especially in the digital age that we're in right now, there's a lack of humanization of people because you view people as oh yeah, Corey Williams, he's nation's number one beast. He wins bike races, and that's all he is. And I think that, the thing that is setting, especially Legion apart, is that they are providing a narrative and a context for their success, which is part of why their message is so successful.
And for people who don't know, Legion is an extremely successful criterium racing cycling
franchise
team. Yeah, franchise
yeah.
At this point with Williams Racing Development. So when we're speaking about, these major teams and things like that, that's exactly what we're talking about is people's knowledge is very limited of what somebody is actually like in real life. It's I can speak personally on that too, just because I might have 16,000 people on Instagram that have no idea what my real life looks like. They don't know what I'm up to day to day. They see training, they see bike racing, and they see 15-second snippets of my life.
Yeah. I mean, they see what you put on Strava and they see what you put on Instagram, yeah. But what is omitted from that story is you work 40 hours a week
as an engineer?
Yeah, as an engineer. But people don't know that. Exactly. They view through the lens of cycling. And I think that one of the things that I would really like to do is that's how so much of the internet views everyone, even if you're not a big creator, the narrative that so many people put out on Instagram is so doctored to an audience. And I think the thing that is so interesting about hopefully what we can do here is well, let's pretend that audience isn't there. I'm just going to talk to you like a person.
Exactly.
One of the things that really kind of sparked this idea for me is on Wait, Don't Tell Me. Do you listen to NPR?
I don't think so. Oh, well, I listen to NPR, but mostly Freakonomics and some other things.
So NPR has a thing where they bring in, an Apple engineer, right? He, hey, you helped design the MacBook, right? And they're they talked to him about designing the MacBook for a while. And then the final piece of it is they quiz them on agriculture. They're hey, we're going to talk to you about how to grow apples just by happenstance, and they quiz them on it. And I think it's a really funny thing because, they spend the first piece of the interview talking to them about their accolades, the engineering that they did, whatever. but then they end it with this like very lighthearted, humanizing segment where they're like, hey, here's something that you know nothing about, but like, we're going to talk about it. And, you know, they always like loosely tie it in, but I think that just like, you know, hearing that segment always made me feel much closer to the person that they're interviewing, because it felt less scripted. It felt less like an ad read. It didn't feel like this like, okay, cool, we're going to talk about the microchips. We're going to talk about the development process. We're going to talk about, you know, workflows. They like completely,
which is interesting.
Which is cool. That is an important part of the story. But I always liked that it was like this like little mini shock to the system where you like, it forced both the person who was getting interviewed and the listener to be like, oh, cool. Like this is now off script, you know? And that's like what I'm hoping to get a little of is we have a bunch of really cool people who we've already reached out to, who we want to talk to about kind of everything but bike racing.
I'm super excited for the people that have already been stoked on the idea and said yes to it as well. I mean, we've got people that are in everyday life. I mean, they're very successful individuals in like the athletic realm, but on top of that, successful fathers, right? Successful business people, you know, mental health professionals, people that are coaches, you know, they go beyond.
Or just have like super unique life experiences. You know?
People didn't just become endurance athletes overnight too. Some people have battled through disease and so many other things and like tough circumstances to put themselves in a position to be able to then become successful in sports, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. I think that like I think a lot about manufactured success, right? And I think the thing that is a lot of people like the manufactured success happens because it is manufactured, and some people manufacture their own success. And I think that like the thing that has been cool to see in the cycling space is there is a diverse number of voices. And with that like diverse number of voices, and it is becoming more diverse, is you get a really diverse like life experiences. You know, I think that there are people who are, I think for a lot of people who are even like up the ranks of bike racing are not, you know, bike racing doesn't pay all their bills.
Very true.
And so it's like, yeah, they ride a bunch, but what are they doing those other hours? And I think a lot of times because people want to look pro on the internet, they don't talk about the fact that like
they're working a 40 hour, 50 hours
a week. And I think that like omitting that is a bummer, because I think that makes their athletic achievements more impressive.
Agreed.
It's like an important piece of the narrative.
Working class athletes, if you will.
Working class athletes.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. This is not an ad read for Guillotine Cycling.
No, man, I'm extremely excited for the whole thing. And, you know, for you guys out there listening too, I know we've kind of been talking about our overall goal for the podcast and everything, and, you know, how excited we are to bring on different individuals. I think that just so you guys have perspective too, is like, we've gone all out here, right? So we're really planning on doing it right. We've gotten the guest list together. We have the people ready to come in here and talk to us. We've put the cash behind the cameras. You know, I've spent, like I said, you know, we've spent a lot of time creating content together, even in so many instances. So we've done everything right at this, you know, this point in time. And we'd love to be able to just provide perspective from these athletes to you all. And I think like in the long run too, just having brand support and having AdSense coming in and all those important things that can allow us to fly these athletes into town so that we can have these conversations is really important. So from our perspective, if you guys just smash the like button on the content that you're listening to, if you are gaining value out of this or enjoy it, and seriously, like, you know, go on this journey with us and subscribe to this channel. That's really all we ask from you guys. And I think that if you guys do that and just support us in the best way you know how, which is exactly that, and watching or listening along on your chosen platform, I think that, you know, this is going to be really successful for us. Yeah,
I think that we have we've been doing this a while in other ways. Like you've been making YouTube videos. I do the marketing for my shop. I've been on Instagram. We've like been around the content creation for a long time. I think that this is something new to us, but it's also something that's kind of not new to us. And I think that we're trying to do it right. And I think that, I'm really excited, and I think that it's going to go well. I am excited that we already, this is episode 1. We've already gotten a lot of confirmation of big people who I think are going to be really interesting. I think that the sky is the limit, but it's also as long as we can continue to get support for it.
Of course.
So if you guys follow, can share it.
Sharing is
key.
Very helpful. So if you guys listen and you think that other people should hear snippets of this.
Yeah. Send it to your friends.
Send it to your
family.
Force your family to sit down on Thanksgiving and watch.
Sit in silence and listen to this podcast.
On the timeline of these two, we're not sure how long these conversations are going to be. Some conversations may be 30, 45 minutes, but if we really get into it with the right individuals and they have a lot to say, I think that, these can stretch too. I won't mind having just organic conversations that lead to a couple hours at a time. You guys are probably athletes yourselves if you're listening to this. Maybe not.
I hope not.
I hope that everybody gets value out of this, but for those of you guys that are athletes, if this is trainer content for you, I've been personally cranking a ton of podcasts on the trainer myself, and a lot of really high quality, well shot cinematic, podcasts. And I really want to be able to add to that space with the conversations that we've been talking about. Yeah.
I think that long form is not dead. Despite the attention span shrinking, I think that we are we have a commitment here to long form.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that obviously there will be some short form stuff we put out. But I think that what we're trying to fight back against the compression of narrative.
Yeah.
So yes, there will be Instagram reels and YouTube shorts. But I think that the idea behind this podcast is that it is listened to start to finish, because that is the idea that we're trying to capture, is start to finish,
Put us on in your car.
Put this on in your car on your commute to work. Yeah. San Diego radio stations are trash anyway.
Welcome to 107.8.
I think that just the return to this longer format and we're not shooting for an hour, we're shooting for as long as it takes.
Yeah.
Means that we're hoping to get all of it, we're not trying to just condense any narratives. We're trying to let people talk about the things that are important to them. And if that takes 20 minutes, cool. If that takes an hour, cool. There's no timeline. So I think that we're going to get some very varied length of episodes. So maybe we'll have some short episodes for your shorter workouts, and we'll have some long episodes for your longer workouts.
That's how it goes.
Yeah. And just, we're hoping to just do a wide variety of people. I think that the people that we're talking to are really from kind of all corners of the endurance athlete space. Yep. And I think that as we grow, I hope that more people come out of the woodwork and come to us and be like, hey, I have an interesting story or a unique story, or I feel like I am underrepresented and my narrative in my life is not talked about. And I think that part of the thing that's exciting about this is giving
those individuals platforms.
Yeah, platforms. Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Cool. I think, if you guys are, obviously we're through the intro, you guys know what this is all about. We have a couple episodes uploaded for you guys to go ahead and check out. So if you guys want to go ahead and watch the next video or listen to the next episode 2 should be ready to go with our very first guest, which I'm very excited for. So
I think I'm going to see if we can do the hyperlink thing. Click right here. This is going to be Dalton though on YouTube. I don't know how to do this stuff. Dalton's the YouTube guy.
Yeah. I usually just kind of point at the corner of the screen.
Oh, yeah. Click here. Or there, maybe. Click this way.
To watch the next episode.
Click that way. To watch the next episode. We're super excited that you guys are here with us.
All right.
And
that's a wrap.
Cool.